Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Shit Together. And we have the beautiful Sarah Hicky from Next Level. And for those of you who don't know Sarah, she's awesome. But I'll let you tell the viewers about you. And actually, before I say that, today we're going to talk about the inner critic, what the inner critic is, how you can fuck it off, basically.
Crush it.
Crush it.
Yep.
Because Sarah, for a long time, had a big inner critic. And she's managed to overcome that now and just be amazing. So anyway, over to you.
Cool. Do you want me to give a bit of background on what I do at Next Level?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, because people might not know. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me, Kitty. I love being on your shows. So, so I'm from Next Level. I operate in two main worlds. One is operations. So I've got a real epic quality in organization, getting shit sorted, getting shit done. But I've got this other side around relationships and men and women that I love to work with. And that's where I do a lot of my work. I also started an event series called Next Level Woman, and the beautiful Kitty was there and came and showed her magic. But it also had sort of a key premise to it, and that was how do you crush the inner critic? Because it's something that's rife, and we all have one. It doesn't mean that it may not be prominent now, but we've all had one at some point, and it's it might show up in covert ways or overt ways. And I always say it can show up in both. So my background is, in my late teens, I developed an eating disorder, a pretty gross one. And I was also in the performing industry. So I was an actor and a dancer, and those two things going together, not really understanding my inner critic and it being really strong, combined with putting yourself in circumstances every day with rejection and putting yourself out there and comparing yourself to others. The two is pretty much a concoction for an inner critic nightmare, I'm going to say. So I ended up with, I had a really intense eating disorder, but coming through that, facing all the rejection, all those things, over the last, I would say, from age 24 to 26, I worked really hard on it. And that was one thing I always make clear is it's not, the inner critic is not a spectator sport. You have to get in there and do the work. It's not just going to eventually disappear. I do think it can get easier with age, but I think that's also dependent on the person. So I worked on it really hard. I'm going to say it's now no longer an issue for me. Does it every now and then pop up? Maybe I've done a talk or a facilitation or, after a conversation with someone, I'll go, I probably could have said that better. But the difference now is I don't hold on to it anymore. I know how to click it on, click it off, get through it, acknowledge it. And I've also developed sort of a 4-step process someone can go through for that, because it can be so destroying and so debilitating and just really frustrating when you know where you want to be and who you want to be and who you're becoming, but the inner critic gets in your way. So that's where things are at now. But Kitty, you don't really have one, do you?
No, you talked about, you were saying, because I think I always just, because I'm not stupid, but I'm not some people can just read something and they can absorb it and learn it and pick it up. Whereas I have to do. So in order for me to learn, I need to do and fail. So my thing is always, I will, if I do something and do it poorly, go, oh, you didn't do that very well, but that's okay. You can just learn from it and keep going. Like you said, I don't sit there and punish myself or think, I can't do anything, because I know that I'll have probably 10, 15 failures. In business, I just know it's constant failure. I'm just used to it, and I think that's, if you can have that view, then my standard of success is just action.
Yeah.
Even if it's the wrong action, because it's better for me to do that than do nothing. And because it's just, you get nowhere.
Yeah. So something I think you do super well, Kitty, is it's how you frame your failure. So you don't look at failure and go, that was me, it's who I am, I can't do anything. I believe the term you use, you fail forward. Is that what you guys say?
Yeah.
You take it and you keep going. So if there was a big blanket umbrella I could sit across the top of crushing the inner critic, it would probably be curiosity. Get curious about how it's showing up for you, why, when, how you deal with it. Because the more you get curious about it, the more you can understand it, the better chance you have of crushing it. So you've just become aware that maybe in the past it's shown up in certain ways, but really for you, it's like you've just learnt your way of how you learn, which is to fail. And if you let the inner critic get in the way, you'd never learn anything. You just stay the same.
Because I think about like our business and where we are now versus where we were 12 months ago. And 12 months ago, we were just starting our online program. And, you know, our coach, Lynn, was like, okay, you need to pre-sell this and you just need to build it as you go. So it's like, we were just like, okay, you just have to do it. But you learn so much from getting it close enough and then testing it and failing. Because there's all these things that we would never have thought of until we'd actually done it and it failed. And we're like, oh, we could do this better. So I think it's just viewing failure as good.
Yes.
And learning. And it's all part of the process and the journey. And it's inevitable. And if you look at any successful person, they've failed so many times. But it's their ability to just get back up and go, what can I learn from that? What's the opportunity here? And who cares?
Yeah. And another form of failure is rejection, right? So often when we get rejected, we identify with it, like it's who I am, it's not working. I remember when I was an actor, I was pretty new. I'd moved from Melbourne to Sydney. I'd sort of landed. I had a show reel together and I went, okay, my first step is I need to get an agent, right, before I can go to auditions. So I sent out my like CV. Is that even what it's called?
CV. Yeah.
My show reel out to all my key agents. I made a list of the top 10 that I wanted. And I went on a few like meetings with them and a few of them went really well, but there was one guy in particular I wanted. And I felt like the meeting went pretty well, but it was left quite open. So I called him a few days later and I said, look, I will really show up for you. I will go to auditions. I'll keep doing the work. Like I will be your best client ever. And he goes, look, Sarah, it's not that. He said, I just can't get a size 12 girl any work. So I used to be a little chubbier. Not that size 12 is chubby, but I was bigger than I am.
Than you are now, yeah.
And I maybe wasn't fit and healthy and strong, so I wasn't at my best. I just remember that destroying me because I identified with it. I was like, well, that means that I'm not good enough. That means that other girls will get the roles. I can't even get an agent. Now, if someone said something like that to me, I'd be like, no worries, on to the next one. Like, not a problem. So I do know that a psychologist in the States, like the studies that they can do around neuroticism and the 5 main traits, that women can tend to be higher in neuroticism. So I think that is working against us a little bit in terms of the inner critic, but I still believe you can work on it. Like, I think
totally. Or if someone says to you, like if someone says to me, you can't do this, I'm like, I can fucking do it. I can fucking do it. I'm like, I will show you that I can do it. Or I just know if I give it long enough.
Yes.
That's where people I think they just go, oh, I tried, but I failed. And and then I criticize myself for failing instead of going, well, this is probably going to take you 6 months or 12 months. But if you just chip away, overcome the failures, you know, if you just play the long game, you'll get it. And just decide what is it that I need to do to get to point B and just like be obsessed with it, you know, like just, but I think you've got really good patience as well, even though like once you decide on something, you go on it, you've then got the patience from where you are now to where you want to be as well. And also the thing on when people say to you, you can't do something and then you go and do it. I was watching an interview the other day with Scooter Braun. Do you know who he is? I was watching an interview with him and he said, because he's got so many artists on his books, this guy was asking him like, you know, when someone says you can't do this or do that, he's like, I literally wait for people to talk shit about something and then I go and do that exact thing. So someone said to him, like, you could never have an artist in the country music scene. So he went and got one. He's like, you could never have someone that's like this. So he went and got one. So it's like a lot of people can use that as motivation, but I think possibly some of the people we might be talking to right now are the ones that when they get rejection, they don't use it as fire. It crushes them. So, but I think there's some cool ways that you can sort of step through that. How do you define the inner critic and how does it show up for your clients? I think it's like, you know, I see them posting the page sometimes. And I think maybe it's a mix of like the inner critic and stories. It's the stories that they tell themselves, you know, like that they don't deserve this or they don't deserve to be happy, or like I was talking to one client and I'm practicing getting better at asking questions than just telling because I'm a doer, you know, I'm like, just do this because I have a coach and I say to them, I want this result. tell me what I need to do and I go and do it, but not everyone's like me. So I've been really practicing, like asking questions. So I was like to her, you know, like, why is it that you think that you can't be consistent or something? I just asked her, like, what's the story that you're telling yourself? Because, you know, and then she started to tell me and break it all down. And she was like, I just don't deserve to be hot. I don't deserve to have the body. I don't deserve to have. And then she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. That's what it is. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what is it? Like, what is it that you want? Like, you're here and you want to get to here. And she's like, I want to be at 20, like whatever, just a healthy body fat. I want to feel good. I want to sleep well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what is the story you need to tell yourself? She's like, well, I do deserve that. I do deserve that. Like, you know, and I think maybe it's the inner critic is saying that you can't do something. It's like someone else, but it's inside you telling that you can't do this. Yeah,
exactly. It really is. And I think there's like I was saying earlier, there's the overt and the covert. So I think that they can be the overt, like the straight up, you're not good enough. Like, you know, you can't be sexy. You can't stick to this diet. You never follow through. It's like, it's those stories. I think the overt ways are really interesting as well. I think an example of that would be something like comparison. And they go up really subtly. And I always say to someone that, like, the biggest way to first up just crush comparison is just amplify someone else. So whoever you're comparing yourself to, we were sort of speaking about this earlier, comparing yourself to, go up and tell them what you love about them or think about what you love about them and amplify them. I guarantee you it will disarm the inner critic, that comparison aspect, you know, because what we're seeing in them, what we're jealous of is just an acknowledgement of something that we want in ourselves. That's all. So go up and tell them, like, go and share it with them, or like write it down if you don't know them, or think about the thing that you want. And I think that can be a way of like just distinguishing the two, the covert and the overt. That's such a good,
like we were talking about that, you know, how I just will say to people, like, see someone and go, wow, like there was this chick in Lynn's Facebook page and she did a live and she was like black and she had this most amazing hair and just beautiful. I just commented, I said, you are just beautiful.
Yeah.
I was like, you are just like incredible, like those eyes and that hair. You know, but I think it's just because there's always going to be someone prettier than you.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone smarter than you. There's going to be someone leaner than you.
Stronger,
there's someone with more money. But it's like you have to look at the good things in yourself.
Yes.
And be happy with them and focus on, like, I don't ever look at myself and go, I don't look at the good, the bad. I look at the good. You know, like I'll often say to Craig, I'm like, I'm not a real natural beauty. Like there's a lot of, like, I'm not ugly, but there's a lot of women out there who are just like you are a beautiful, natural beauty. Like you don't wear any makeup. I've got a full face of makeup on, you know, like you just really, but that's okay because I've got great muscles and I'm strong and I'm energetic and I'm like, I don't look at that. I look at you and I think how beautiful you are rather than looking at someone. But you know, like I think for a woman, like that's such a good, like if you can't openly compliment another woman, it's like you have to look at yourself.
You do. You really do.
Work on yourself.
Yeah. And everyone could take a page out of Kitty's book right now because you just stepped through the process. You're like, okay, I acknowledge what's beautiful about you, but then here's what's beautiful about me. I'm really strong and I'm this, like, I don't actually agree with what you said. I actually think you are a natural beauty, but it doesn't matter. It's how you see yourself, and that's important, and you have a really strong self-esteem. And I think the stories we were speaking about, another way of framing that is self-talk. Like that's what a critic is, right? It's like you've just got to learn to start reframing your self-talk to be the thing that you want. There's actually a really cool thing around identity that ties into that. It's really simple.
Yeah.
If you have any clients or if there's anyone watching that hits the snooze button in the morning, right? So they don't get up as soon as they hear their alarm. A really good question to ask is, what's the identity that's hitting the snooze button in the morning? Because you're going to bed with that identity and you're waking up and you're going throughout your day. Because the person who hits the snooze button is certainly not and identity is to be defined as any statement that says I am. So I am this, I am this. So a person who hits the snooze button is certainly not the I am a go-getter, I am capable of anything, I am lean, I am strong, I am an awesome woman, you know, I'm a capable mother. Like you're not wearing those identities if you hit the snooze button. So just to start to think about identity and self-talk, if someone's saying like, I'm not deserving of it, take a little look at the I am statements you're running internally. Just like literally getting out a piece of paper, put a line down the middle. On one side, write all the identities you're currently wearing, right? And you might have to think about it and dig them out. And then on the other side, write what the contrast needs to be. and wake up with that person the next morning. And like the shift can be so intense. You wouldn't be a snooze button hitter, would you?
No. I'm like up like 4:30 every morning. Yeah, but I just love it. Just love to get up.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah. But I have at times dipped into ways like that, and I know all I've got to do is go, okay, what identity am I waking up with? Oh shit, yeah, I haven't been that energized lately. I'm the energized woman. Like I'm the go-getter. I'm the business investor. I'm the relationship coach. Like you've got to keep addressing them. And sometimes we're given those labels or identities by other people, and we just hold on to them. Even something as simple as like, I'm not a morning person. That's something you've just been telling yourself for probably your entire life. And all you have to do is just flip the switch. Just wake up different. Just don't hit the snooze button. Just get up. I think Mel Robbins has got a cool video on that. It's like,
is she the blonde lady? Yeah, she's blonde. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and she was like depressed and yeah. And she like, I think it's like knowing, like I think a lot of women, this has gone for a bit of a tangent too. It's like understanding that you can't just go like, well, you can, but it's training yourself to do that.
Yes.
Because it's like if you are not happy how you are, then you have to train yourself to do the things required. And it's like, you know, initially getting up in the morning's hard. It's going to be hard. But you just like, I have mornings where I'll wake up and feel tired, but I'm like, out of bed. Because it's a standard. It's like, I just fucking do it because I know that when I get up and I go and have my coffee and do my work, I'm like, I feel like I'm like, you know, but it's like, it's just so ingrained in me now. It's like, you've got to expect that it's going to be hard initially. But if you want to change enough, if the desire is strong enough, you'll do it.
Yeah. And
but you also can't expect to be easy.
You just gave people a clue there as well. Because the first thing you said when you hit the snooze button, but you're a bit tired, is get up. Just get up. Just get up.
Yeah. It's the action.
That may creep in for them where the first time their alarm goes off early, they're like, and they've just got to catch themselves that one morning and go, get up. And then do it again the next morning and do it. Like anything done well is done well in a small way first, right? So like with habits that you form with clients, it's like just do one day well and then we'll focus on the next day. And we're just going to build on that. And then you get evidence for why that old identity doesn't even serve you anymore. And you can keep the new one served and just keep moving forward and keep doing good stuff and let the inner critic just die down a little bit.
I think too, it's like celebrating the small wins.
Yes.
So it's like, that's something that I do all the time. I'm like, I pat myself on the back all the fucking time. I'm like, I was like, fuck, I've become so, I'm like, it's taken me 12 months to nail this. I wouldn't say I've nailed it completely, but like every time I, you know, did something good with the Facebook ads or nailed something or like, you know, say, even if you get up 2 mornings in a row early, pat yourself on the back for that. Yes. Celebrate the small wins and then keep going. And it just gets easier and easier and easier because you've just got to, it's just practicing discipline.
Absolutely.
If you do anything enough, it will become easier.
Yeah. I was speaking to a mutual friend of ours actually who's become a new mum the other day, and she was speaking about all the things she didn't get done. And I was like, what about the small wins? Like, what did you do well today? And she was like, oh, well, you know, I got these feeds in and I got this done. And, you know, I did manage to like do a little bit of reading. And I'm like, small wins, girlfriend.
Totally.
Small wins. Yeah. Like, I think sometimes when have the epic goals, but if there's an area you're challenged in, small wins along the way, and then you'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, if you like, people say set goals, which is good. But I'm like one of our, you know, business coaches, like, well, what's your goal for this month? Like, you know, let's double your clients. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't really motivate me.
Yeah.
It doesn't motivate me. What motivates me is going, okay, like what are the actual things that I need to put in place? Like I need to do this with the ads. I need to improve retention. I need to put this system in place. Like that motivates me. And I know that then the reward will come rather than focusing on the end.
Yeah,
like
cool.
It's what are the things I need to do every day, and then I pat myself on the back for achieving those things just every day and every week.
Yeah. It's sort of like you focus locally, but with a global awareness.
Yeah.
So you've got an awareness of where it'll take you. Yeah. You're like, I'm just going to focus on these points to get there, which is such a good way of breaking it down rather than just this huge, big, massive.
Because I think women, you know, like they come into our program and they've got so much weight to lose.
Yes.
And it's like, you can't even focus on that.
It's overwhelming. Yeah.
You just need to focus on.
By the way, Kitty, I was about 16 kilo heavier, maybe.
Because you're so tiny now.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine you.
Yeah, I was definitely a little, I was chubbier bunny. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And had some hormone stuff and all that jazz. But
from all of the dieting, the crazy, the eating disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, all icky, all icky.
Yeah.
But would it serve listeners for me to
Yeah, let's go through what's your thing of the inner critic? What's your how would you
how it
describe
shows
it?
up?
Yeah. Well, would you describe it? What's your definition of the inner critic?
Yeah, I call it the little whisper, because I think that's what it is. I think maybe sometimes it feels like it's screaming, but unless you've become aware of it, it just sits as this little whisper, like, you can't do that. Oh, this is just who you are. This is who you've always been. Don't go speak to that person. Don't start the business. I think it's just that whisper, but I think it's actually the other whisper we need to listen to, the one going, actually go do that thing. But if this one gets too loud, I think it's impossible to hear the thing that you really want to go do.
Yeah.
So I would say that's it. I would say that how it showed up for me in the past was definitely around comparison. The acting industry has an excellent way of teaching you how to compare yourself to others. That just doesn't show up for me anymore. Like, I know that in businesses and teams that women can get really hard on each other. But now, like, I embrace the hell out of the women in my world, because I just know that's how we win. I mean, it's the exact same with men. Celebrate them and let them in as well. But if we speak specifically about women, amplify each other, because it is truly will drive you forward. Like, cutting someone else down, comparing yourself, cutting yourself down doesn't do anyone favors. We do epic things when we work together. Epic things. So yeah. So I'll take you through the four.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first is acknowledge it. There's a psychologist in the States, I think his name's Daka Keltner, and he said that the definition of emotional intelligence is being able to put a language around our states. So I truly believe that simply by acknowledging and being aware that it's the inner critic and going up, that's the inner critic, okay, there it was, you're one step closer to being able to actually work with it. I actually always give people an activity though, and I think you've heard me do this, and that is that I encourage you to give your inner critic a name. And some people say, well, doesn't that mean like it gives it an identity and makes it stronger? And I'm like, no, what it does is it puts you over here and creates some distance between you and the inner critic, the thing that you've named. So the benefit of that is when there's some distance in that moment where it's coming up, you can just get a little bit of objectivity and be able to go, that's Barry, or that's Cindy, and then distance yourself and do something about it, as opposed to feeling completely consumed by it all the time. So that's the first thing I get people to do, is give it a name, and give it a comedic name. Don't give it a name that like means a lot to you. Give it something. I know some people like to swear in this instance, like, the naggy bitch, or get a little more intense, or it might be Betty or like Roger. Not that they're funny names. There might be people watching. But just give it something that's comedic to you. Give it something funny. And I really, I trust you'll notice that if you give it a name, you'll start to actually acknowledge when it shows up more. And be able to sort of create some distance. The second thing, it's called a reality check. And this is all around the quality of questions. So I think it was the same psychologist, it might have been another, but there was just the quality of your questions determines the quality of your conversation. And that can also be the conversation with yourself. So even shaping things like, say the inner critic is coming up around meeting new people, which is very common for people. You're walking into a party and it's like, or a meeting or a new job or whatever, and it's like the inner critic's really loud. Just ask yourself, instead of going, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I'm not good enough? What if that? Reframe your questions, get real about it, and go, hang on, what is the worst thing that could happen right now? And what you'll often find is, I might fail. Okay, cool. Well, that won't mean that you'll die. And sometimes it's looking at like, what's the actual risk versus the perceived risk? So it's like, okay, you think, I'll die, I'll lose my family, all those things. It's like, no, all that'll happen is you'll have to get up and try again. And go try something new. So just get a reality check about it. Take a breath, like acknowledge it coming up, and then be like, what's the worst thing that could happen right now? Because I can so guarantee that anyone watching right now, there's something that they wish they could go and do that they haven't done. But if they just went, what is actually the worst thing that could happen? It just reframes it. Stop them thinking that it's this big, intangible thing. It's there. You can go and grab it. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I give you the example of this, Kitty, whenever I go and speak about inner critic, it's action. And every time I go and speak about this at an event or with women, I reference you. I say, Kitty is the queen of action. And there's a reason your inner critic is so quiet, other than that I'm sure there's other elements, but you just get shit done. You just go out and you take action. And that thing I was just mentioning, that if anyone has something that I know they do, something that you want to go and do, take a small step towards it and you will get closer. Talk a little bit about how action just keeps yours quiet, because you're such a doer.
Yeah, because I think like I still have dumb thoughts. Like I still sometimes think dumb shit, like trying to think some of the dumb shit that I think about, like, you know, in now that we're in our online business, like you really have to put yourself out there. Like, you know, like I do posts and marketing and stuff. And sometimes I'm like, you know, probably fucking people are thinking this about this. And it's like, shut up, Kitty. Like, because you can let your thoughts run away from you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and at the end of the day, people didn't like me before I was doing this. So there's still going to be more people who don't like me now. I can't change that. I can't change what people think about me. All I can focus on is what I think about myself. But it doesn't mean I don't sometimes have those thoughts. But whenever I do, I'm like, I actually stop myself, like before it gets to, because, you know, you start to have these thoughts and then they get worse and you start thinking about other shit. So I stop myself and I'm like, I actually say to myself, I'm like, stop thinking that dumb shit.
Yeah.
And then I go and do something. Yeah. Because it distracts me from just thinking about, because you can overanalyze and then start to feel shit and start to question yourself and but I just don't let it get to that.
Yeah.
I just go and do. Yeah. Because I'm like, well, that, you know, that's not going to help me help my business. That's not going to help me win in the program. And then I go and like do like, you know, what can we implement now? What can we make better? Work on a project, because that's putting your energy into something good.
Yeah.
And you'll forget about it.
Yes,
and
totally.
You do. Yeah.
Yep. And one thing, an analogy I always give people that again came from, I believe, that same psychologist, and it was if you imagine your capacity for taking risks, so your willingness to jump out of your comfort zone as like a container, each time you do it and you get evidence that you didn't die and your world didn't collapse, it gets just a little bit bigger. So you have that evidence along the way where your capacity now for just taking risk and getting out there is quite big. So if we were to dip this into a few contexts, there might be someone watching who the inner critic comes up whenever they go to initiate sex with their partner, right? There might be a fear around rejection. That's definitely a real thing. But what if you just did it once, and even if they rejected you, you tried it again, right? And each time your capacity just got a little bit bigger. And then at some point along the way, they're going to say yes, and you've said yes to connection, and you've got evidence for going and doing it again. Maybe it's a really challenging conversation you have to have around work, or maybe it's a presentation, right? And you're here and you're quite scared. This is your capacity, but you go and have that one conversation and it gets a little bit bigger. Then you go have the next conversation. It gets a bit bigger again. You only have to take one step at a time. And I totally acknowledge that taking action and risk when the inner critic is strong is actually really scary. Like not everyone might be at that point with their inner critic that we are. So that's what I'd encourage them to do. Just take one little step. In fact, anyone who's watching this, that's the action. They've got to go and take one step towards something and name the inner critic, take that step, and then just look at what happens, reassess, like get some evidence, reflect what happened for me, what didn't. But I think if they were to do just one, it would be action.
It's funny, you know, like, because when women join the program, some of them haven't lifted before. So they're really scared about going to the gym. They're like, oh, fuck, I'm going to look like an idiot, blah, blah, blah. But then when they actually go and do it and they just pull the Band-Aid off and they're like, oh, that actually wasn't that bad. I feel so much better now. And like, there's a lady in our program, Nikki, she's awesome. She's really funny. And she was like that at the start. Now she just like waltzes into the gym, sets up her camera, you know, because I think it's like conditioning. It's conditioning yourself, because the more and more you do it, you just get conditioned to it. The first time's really scary and hard, but that's how I've trained myself to be now. I'm like, I've conditioned myself to know that the more I do it, the easier it'll get. So it's like, just do it.
Absolutely.
But I also think too, it's like, I don't want to be like, for me, like you say, like feeling in pain or criticizing myself. I don't like to feel like that. So it's like, I'm like, what do I need to do to not feel like that anymore?
Yeah. Choice. There's some choice there.
Yeah. So it's like, think about it and think in your head and go, like, for example, when we come to program, I really hate how I look. I hate how I feel. I'm out of control with food. You know, isn't that pain enough to make you want to do the things? Like, isn't that, think about, do you want to stay here or do you want to get better? And it's just one step at a time. Do the meal plan. Focus on prepping the food. Then go to the training. So it's like one step at a time. Just do one thing. Do it well. Do it. Eventually, like, they're like, oh, this meal plan's so easy, Kitty. I can do the meal planning with my eyes closed. I prep my food because they've done it over and over and over and over and over again. It becomes the norm. So you're so right.
That's so it. And I so wish someone had said to me, like at the beginning of my journey when I was losing weight and sorting out my eating disorder, if someone had said to me, the pain you're feeling now is so much worse than anything you'll experience trying to make it better, I would have been like, I'm in.
Okay, I'm in. Just like,
I wouldn't have yo-yoed and tried all these crazy things. I would have just been like, okay, cool. I found someone I trust. Let's do this. Like, I'm ready. It's so worth it.
Oh, it just
worth fighting for.
And I think too, you've got to, like, again, go back to play the long game. Like, you have to expect that it's like, you know, a great tennis player doesn't become a great tennis player overnight.
Yeah.
You have to prepare yourself. Like I tell the women in program, you're going to fail this meal planning. Trust me. No one ever nails it the first time, but that's normal. And that's good because you learn, because you'll do it and Mel will look at it and go, change this. You'll do it again. It'll be changed less. Do it again. To the point where she doesn't have to change anything anymore. But you have to be prepared for that failure and know that it's okay, because you'll just pick something up every single time you do it to master anything, right? 10,000 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And progression, just focus on progression. Like, just focus on improving one thing.
Yep.
Every time you do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a key, like a really key thing we've said throughout this conversation has been one thing. Like
one thing.
At a time. One thing. And I know that that's what you teach and what you do. One thing, one day, one meal, like we're just going to get it right. And then we're going to get, you know, momentum and then evidence, and then you're going to be good. And then you're going to find it easy before you know it. Your capacity, you're going to need a lot more in order to feel that sense of like, I did a good job. So it grows and it gets more fun and more risky as we go. But there's a fourth step. So acknowledge, reality check, action. And the fourth is connection. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like a woo-woo intimate connection, but it is that we don't have to do it alone. And anyone who's watching this is obviously in your community or is going to be, and they've found someone to go on that journey with them, which is epic. But I always share the story that when I was in my early 20s, I did a trip to India and I was I chose this, I thought I was going on this like big internal journey, and I chose a hotel like away from everyone. And I was out on the deck one time meditating, and this woman came up, like yelled out from another balcony. She was like, oh, hi. And I was like, oh, hi, like doing my thing, you know. And then later that day I saw her at a gathering, and she looked really happy. Like she was like connecting with people and doing her thing. And my journey was not going the way I planned it to. I went there to find myself and work out who I was, and it just wasn't working. I saw at this gathering, and she just came over to me and just wrapped her arms around me and gave me a hug. And she pulled me away, and she was just like, I felt like you needed that. And it sounds like a really simple story, but in that moment, I just realized that by blocking connection, I was blocking connection to myself, but I was also, the inner critic was so loud because I'd isolated myself. And that's is the inner critic loves isolation, and it will also try to keep you isolated. Like don't take that risk, don't make the friend, don't have the conversation.
Or don't be vulnerable.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I just realized, okay, get open, connect with people, even when you don't want to. And it's like, I'm sure this may happen with you. I know it happens with my partner when clients go a little quiet. It like might be because they're not sticking to plan or not doing things. Just own it. Own it. Step up. I failed. Okay, great. Go again. Connect, right? Yeah. And then the most important connection you'll ever have is with yourself. So do the self-work, work on the inner critic, work out who you are, and get some sort of a purpose together as well, because the inner critic shows up a lot less when you know why you're waking up every day.
I totally agree. Because I think like some women that come into our program, like kids are grown up and they're not working. And I'm like, you just got too much time on your hands. Yeah. Yeah. You just got too much time to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet if you
imagine that at this right now, but that would kind of be awesome. But yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, get some purpose back, whatever that might be for you.
Yeah, find something that you love and that you can get up and do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck as to what that could be, there's a lot of other people out there who need help. So just go and help someone else.
Yeah. I think just going back to like talking about being vulnerable and being okay to go, you know, like I'm really struggling with this, or like I feel like this, but then it's like, don't, you know, because we've got a rule in our group, no whinging. It's like reach out for solutions.
I like that.
It doesn't mean not have feelings, but it goes reach out with the purpose of express the feelings. And then what is it, the action that I need to take to move me away to where I want to go?
Yeah.
You know, and it could just be a small thing that they do. And, you know, I think the people that actually are able to be vulnerable and then ask for help and actually implement the suggestions, they move forward.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah. Also, there's a, what's her name? Brene Brown. Have you read any of her books?
Mm-mm.
She did a lot of work around vulnerability and empathy and things. And in one of her books, she said, vulnerability, it's neither good nor bad. It is simply to feel, and to feel is to have the human experience. So it's like, feel the pain, like feel how you're stuffed up or how you're struggling, but then don't stay there.
No.
Find out what the action is to move you forward.
Because you feel so much more empowered.
Yeah.
Like whenever, that's why I think action always makes me feel good. Like if I'm ever like, shit's happened in our business and like I sometimes have to sit there and have to, you need to feel this here. Like you need to just be, it's okay with like feeling a bit shit about this for a bit.
Yes.
And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to feel shit anymore. What's the action that I can take to, what's the opportunity? What can I learn? And then just move forward.
Yes.
And go and then all of a sudden you don't care about what happened anymore because you're excited about what you're doing now.
Yeah.
You
and
know,
there's such a difference, right, between that and sweeping it under the rug and like never acknowledging that it affected you. We're not saying do that. We're saying acknowledge it and feel it. It's okay to feel crap, but then what's the thing you need to do? What's the action you need to take? What's a reality check? How's the inner critic showing up? And then what do you need to just go and do? And go find a battle buddy, someone to connect with and help. And
you don't need to suffer. No. You don't need to suffer, like make yourself suffer. I think that's what a lot of people, women do too. They just suffer. It's like suffering's optional. You know, it doesn't mean it's not hard. Yeah. I know it's hard. I fucking know. I know that you are going to find this hard, but you can make it harder for yourself.
Yes.
Like instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. Celebrate the small wins. Focus on the progress, not perfection. Fail forward. And if you do that, you just like every day you're getting up going, fuck yeah, I did this or I did that. Or, you know, like I fucked up here, but you know, I owned it and I'm moving forward now because like no one ever, and that's what I like about our program because I'm like, it's going to take you 12 to 18 months because trust me, you won't be perfect.
Yeah,
you'll
don't
like this and then you'll get complacent and you'll fucking have a fail and you'll binge or you'll do this or something. Like the old you will creep back in. Trust me, because I see it all the time. It takes time.
Yeah,
it takes time to change and build the habits and build behaviors and like you say, build that new identity. And like you can't just snap your fingers and go, oh, I'm all good now. Like not that you're not good, but you know what I mean? Like it's like it takes time. Just the long game. Play the long game always and you'll win. Yeah. I think. Totally. Like
you mentioned like 6 awesome things there. It was like fail forward, something progress, this and this. I was like, oh, just do that.
Just do that. Just live by the standards. The new Shrek standards and you'll be right.
That's it. Live by the standards.
Until they become ingrained in you.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is what I think maybe we might be at that point in some ways. It's like the inner critic isn't a huge issue for us anymore, but I had to work at it. I really had to work at it in my early 20s, but it's so possible to crush it. And I would even say that there's a way to make it eventually work for you. And I would say that the way that happens is that you just become a bit competitive with yourself, but in a really healthy way. And you just always want to be better, you know? Like sometimes when I fail and stuff up, like I remember when I was training in facilitation, I got up in front of this room. I'm normally a bit more of a preparer. Like I'll have an idea about what I want to talk about. I'm like, I'm just going to wing it this time. So I got up, I think the topic was beliefs. And I got up and I went, beliefs. And then just
blank.
And I fumbled my way through it, epically failed, But I knew, and it felt really crap at first, I'm not going to lie. And my mentor was like, okay, that wasn't very good. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I knew if I didn't get straight back up again, you know, the next week or whenever, it would have stuck with me. But I knew what I had to do. I had to just get back up. And I did fine the next time. I rocked it. So, and it's like you said, you know, the journey, you'll do well, you'll dip, you'll do well again, you'll dip. And that's what happened. I was doing really well and I dipped, but I knew what to do to keep it going again. So that's the key. Fail forward. Progress.
Yeah, it's never, you know, like in our business, we've always had, like, when things are going good, I'm like, shit's going to happen now. Like, people probably think that that's really bad way to look at it, but I'm ready and I don't worry about it. Because I'm like, as I know also that if I just weather through this, we always come out the other side. Yeah. And that's what it is.
Yes.
So it's like just weathering and going, okay, this is happening for a reason. It's teaching us something, you know, like all the shit things that have happened in the business and money we've lost. It's lessons that we never would have learned if we didn't go through that, and just not knowing that that's what it is. I think you just got to prepare yourself that shit's not easy, but that's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Like,
it is good. I think you also get better at anticipating challenges as well. Yeah. So it's like you said, like you're going, like, I think something bad going to happen is going well, but it's not like you're really worried about it. You're just like, I'm just going to anticipate that things come in ebb and flows, and you might be about to hit a bit of an ebb, and that's okay. But I think you can also get even good at like anticipating what that might be and preparing for it. I think you can get to a point where you're going,
this is going to happen.
Yeah, let's look at the board. Okay, these are the possible options. This could happen, and just be ready for it. Yeah. You know, if you're about to go into like an interview or meet someone new or something you find challenging, anticipate all the ways it could go. And then you've already foreseen all the things that can happen, or the majority, and work backwards from that. And then you won't really be that surprised.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounded so bad though. I expect things to be shit. I don't, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. And I do that too. I'll recap the four steps.
Go over. Yeah.
Okay. So, acknowledge it and give your inner critic a name, right? Something funny. Reality check. What's the worst that could happen? Ask new questions. The third is take action. If you're going to do one thing, just do that. Take a page out of Kitty's book and connect. Connect with people even when you don't want to, because that will really help crush the inner critic. If you do those 4 things and look at identity, do that exercise I was telling you about. Who are you waking up as? What do you need to challenge? All those things will come together, and I think it'll really help you, whoever's watching, start to crush the inner critic and work with it a bit, because sometimes it sucks.
Yeah. And you just got to do the work. Like you say, you got to work on it. You can't expect it to be easy. You got to work, and it will get, if you want it enough, you'll get there eventually, I think. Just don't give up. That's exactly right. You got to get your hands dirty.
That's it. Get in, get dirty.
Is there anything else you want to add before we finish up, or I think we've probably discussed quite a lot actually.
I hope we didn't blow their minds like that. I think there's a lot in there to do, but absolutely. No, do those things. Just take action. Do what Kitty does. Do that.
Yeah, just don't worry about failure.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that happen? You're not going to die.
There you go. Reality.
People will judge you and hate you no matter who you are. Like, you can't help that. Like, you'll connect with the people. Like, it's interesting too. Like, I was one day talking to Lynn about, certain people have like make comments on our ads and just, and he goes, have you ever looked, Kitty, at the people that shit on you? He's like, are they behind you or are they ahead of you? I was like, that's a really fucking good point, actually. He's like, because the people that are ahead of you don't do dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
They focus on their own lane and what they're doing.
Time.
They don't spend time looking on Facebook and writing dumb comments on posts. He's like, and I said, and that's, I think, if you look at anyone, like people who don't support you or they try to drag you down, it's like, look at those people. Do they have what you want? Because anyone who's successful, most people, they don't do that. Do you want to be like that person? No. I'm like, that really made me like, now I'm just like, I just don't give a fuck anymore. Because after he said that, I was like, you're so right.
Wise words. Very wise.
I was like, good one. Yeah. Anyway, that's another bloody thing, but awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for coming on the show. We'll have to get together again and do another topic because that was really good.
Let's do that. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I love it. I love being with you.
Awesome. And I will, I'll see you next time.
Yes. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.